And we're back. There we go. Technology, my friends. Technology. Wow. Where were we? Here's what I want to ask you.
Yeah.
Okay, you've got a new album out.
Mm-hmm.
Are you currently performing to support it?
I wish I were. I don't have.
Here we go with the COVID times.
Well, that's one aspect of it. Another aspect is that I don't have a manager, or I don't have any. And also,
Do you need one?
I don't think I will when people discover what I do. And I'm just about to be discovered, which is, I'm in my 50s now, so it's about time.
It's never too late.
No, but I've been discovered so many times for so many different reasons. But what I really want to do now is I've developed the skill of creating space, contemplative space. That's basically, if I have to kind of explain in a simple way what I do, it's creating contemplative space. That's what I do.
I see.
And that's something that you can use in different settings. So when people get an understanding that a musical performance doesn't necessarily have to be a stage with a musician and seats where an audience is placed and a musician delivering and an audience receiving, that kind of dynamic. If you can get your head out of that kind of way of thinking about it, it's much more like a shamanistic or healing way of seeing it.
Yeah.
Is that I have... Oops.
We'll just let that stay there.
I have this knowledge that makes me capable of creating a certain type of space.
Yeah.
And in this space, you have the possibility to be introspective and go into your own mind and see places in your own mind that you maybe don't venture into too many times.
Yeah.
And maybe creating safe spaces for scary places in your mind that you can finally just look into because it feels safe now. Yeah. Because I'm carrying you in a way. I'm making room, saying that this is fine. You can go in there and explore because no one's gonna
compartmentalize it and then let it sit until you're ready to approach it.
Yeah, because I look at the mind as a big house, and we need to clean that house, and we need to put things in its right place. Sometimes you bring something from one room and you leave it in another room and you go, God, where did I leave that? And it's, why is it here? Oh yeah, I remember. We do that all the time, and we do that in our minds as well. So every now and then putting on all the white lights in our mind and just going from room to room and cleaning up and saying, I don't need that anymore. Chug that out. Yeah. This is supposed to be in that other room. When this lies here, it doesn't make any sense. It's got to be up here. And you just systemize and clean. And get the clutter out of it, basically.
Yeah.
And that's why my music now is really clutter-free. There's not too many notes. I like few
really
notes.
Amazing. It's really amazing.
I like space. I like giving that room to breathe, so you don't have to, I have to be quick now. I have to have my answer snappy and ready, and it's got to be the right words, and it's got to resonate. And no, just relax.
What you're doing now with your music is so outside of the traditional realm. I guess. I really think it is. with modern music, it's almost a series of cliches. From this chord, we're going to that chord to resolve that chordal sequence. Mm-hmm. After the verse, here comes the chorus, and then you have to have a bridge, and then you have to have a ride out. Your music is none of that. It is so, as you say, it's open, it breathes, it flows. It creates a total atmosphere free of expectation. You cannot expect those traditional Western musical clauses and conclusions.
No.
You know, it doesn't have these traditional chord progressions, and that's what makes it so doggone interesting.
Wow. That's cool to hear.
Should we write that down?
No, but it's interesting for me to hear because you're right in what you're saying, and it's really confirming something. Yeah. Because I mean, I'm just human. I think it's really nice to be confirmed.
Well, it's
and to be seen for what I do, and your explanation is good.
I definitely see what you're doing. I definitely feel what you're doing. There is an otherness to your music. There's something extremely unique about it. Like I said, On the Great Alkali Plains is probably one of the top 3 most beautiful albums I've ever heard in my life.
Wow.
And then to hear what you're doing now, you know, I was in on your YouTube to see some things that you've done since then, and it's unusual, and I say that in an attractive way. It's attractively unusual.
Thank you.
There's unusual things that are quite ugly, and we want to distance ourselves, but your unusualness in your music draws me in, and I'm sure it does for others. So this thing about you getting discovered, I don't know how far in the future that is, but I do believe it's coming, in my humble opinion.
Thank you. Well, you know, I have a hunch myself that this fall is going to be.
Something.
I don't want to jinx it, but I feel that something's happening because and it comes from me. Listen, when it comes to music or politics or whatever, or living in peace and harmony, I believe that change comes from within each and every individual.
Yes,
it has to be that way.
In order for it to be genuine, absolutely.
In order for it to be genuine, and when I sit down, like yesterday, I got up and I felt inspired, and I sat down and I recorded a little snippet and I put it out on Instagram because I could tell that now now I can do it. Not all times during a day or night is made for that, but I have the knack. I know now how to recognize, okay, there's a moment now, and then I can just drop everything I'm doing and I can just go
pull it out
and what I call just capturing that moment in time, because there's a magical moment happening, and I now have the skill to capture that moment. And that's not something that I can provoke to happening. I have to be aware. You can't force it. You have to be aware and recognize and prepared. So that's why my recording system is real simple. It takes me 15 seconds to put up, which has taken me many years to get a system that works in that way. And the way I approach my playing also, it doesn't take
spontaneous.
It's spontaneous. Because I have my own vocabulary now that it's just me, so I kind of just comment. I let the notes be an extension and a comment of the energy that is happening
right then and there.
Right then and there. That's basically
literally
my intention.
A musical snapshot, a musical photograph of the moment.
It's like one of the videos on YouTube, which is called Over Rooftops with Birds. It's a really good example, because what's really going on there is just a Sunday morning, quiet because everyone's sleeping, and it's a bit of rain and the sound that makes, and there's some birds that are playing and being in the rain. And I just felt that moment so intensely.
Yeah.
And because I'm a guitar player, and the guitar is kind of connected to me in that way.
Yeah.
It's my way of being a part of that moment, if you see what I mean.
I do.
I just take up my finger and I pull a string, I push a string, and it goes ping.
Yeah.
And because I'm present in the moment, that sound from the guitar becomes a part of that moment in an integrated way.
I see. Yeah.
And that gives me so much joy. To see that it's not something I'm applying on top of the moment or putting into this. It is the moment. It is the moment. It's an organic part of whatever's going on.
You talk of having a sense of joy when you perform these pieces. Is your music first and foremost for you?
I don't know. I guess so.
I'm very much aware of anything that I write, anything that I perform, my singles that you hear out there, I wrote those singles for myself. Put them out there, and now I hope other people can enjoy it. That's been my approach since I've started, finally, after all these years, putting out my solo stuff.
You can only make music for yourself, I think.
Because people ask me, well, what's your favorite kind of music? And I'll point to my singles that are out there. That's my favorite music. That's why I recorded it.
I'm the same way.
And I don't think there's any arrogance in that. No. It's just a fact.
It's just this, like the music that I'm happy with, that I made. And that I've, I should have played that note instead of that note, but I didn't, so that's fine,
Yeah.
But I also prefer my own music, and it's not a blowing my own horn thing. It's just that I make the sound that I want to hear in the world.
Exactly.
Because I'm the only one who can make that sound, because I am the wanter of the sound, and I'm also the maker of the sound. And I think that should be that way for every individual.
Yes.
And that is kind of both our uniqueness and also our community thing. We make sounds.
Yeah.
We have that in common. But John's sound is different from Espen's sound.
Yeah.
But we make sound.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah. And that sound comes from within. And when it comes from within, I don't believe that there is anything narcissistic or anything arrogant in the statement that I make when I say that I write my music and perform my music first and foremost for myself.
No.
It's the feeling that I have. It's the thought. It's the sound that I have inside. And I'm just getting it out.
Yeah. And because it's honest, it resonates with people. And then people can draw.
That's the hope.
Yeah. And then people can draw from it. And we can get together because, you sing about something that I recognize.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, wow, maybe we're the same. Which is not a maybe. We are the same. Yeah. But we need to learn that.
The music can reinforce that awareness.
That awareness, exactly.
Yeah.
Because that's the lesson. That's the most important lesson at this moment in time, is to see past all the culture and our heritage and all that stuff.
Yeah.
See past that, because Rumi, the Sufi mystic, says this in the most beautiful way that can be said. He says, out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doings, there is a field. I will meet you there.
Aha.
See?
Interesting.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be this polarized thing.
I don't think polarization is in our nature. I think we are doing something that is quite against our nature when we become so polarized. We have many more similarities than we have differences.
Actually, we are all the same, and our differences are minuscule. But for some reason, that's where the focus goes. The focus goes on those differences, and then the polarization is just expanded. But do you think, John, that maybe it's all a process that we have to go through this thing to get
back to the colon cleansing.
Yeah.
Yes. I do believe that, if you will, the colon of life has become so clogged up, we have to cleanse it.
Yeah.
And I do believe that we are going through that process now. How long that process will take, I don't know.
I think it'll be pretty fast.
I think so. I think there's something different in the air these days. There is something different. The process has to be gone through. We're going through it. It's ugly. It's painful. It stinks. But the end result is going to be a better existence. I truly believe that.
Of course it will. And also,
I'm an optimist in that sense.
Well, it's inevitable.
Yes.
And no one wants to dwell in the enema part of the process too long.
Well, but I think we can
you
also
want to get it over with.
Well, sure, but I also but up in all of this, I believe that the world is not so. It's not as bleak and dark and heavy as people will have it to be. People, I see people, especially online. Oh, everything sucks. Oh, things are so terrible. There's a lot of bad things and there's a lot of sucky things, so to speak, in the world, but I don't think it's as bad as people think. I see the change that is occurring, and I see us moving towards something that is better. And that gives me hope, and I would rather express that hope and share that hope than dwell on the darker parts. Mm-hmm. The darker parts are going to be there no matter what. Why can't we look at let's look at what's happening now. Let's look towards hope and get some momentum, and we can leave those dark aspects of life further behind quicker.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that too optimistic? Is that too rose colored and optimistic?
No.
And unrealistic?
Why wouldn't you want to be optimistic?
Yeah.
Why would you want to dwell in something that turns you into a nihilist or
exactly.
Because
I don't want to live like that. I really don't.
I lived like that for a short while. I
did too for a while.
Yeah, it's often a part of a station you get off on, towards on your path to nirvana.
You have to step off the train and sniff around.
Yeah, you have to
get your feet dirty, see what it's like.
You have to, and the initial nihilist feeling of, oh, this is great, now I don't have to kind of worry about anything. But it's not your ending station, because you're naturally a part of this organism that is the universe. You're a part of it whether you want to or not.
Yeah. Embrace it then.
And nihilism doesn't embrace that. It just says fuck you to everything. Yeah. And you should say fuck you to some things, but not to everything. And
then there's a way of saying fuck you that is not destructive. That is not self-defeating.
Now, I wanted to share a little more from the Tao Te Ching concerning what we're talking about.
Of course.
And the Tao Te Ching says, in verse 29, it says, do you want to improve the world? I don't think it can be done. The world is sacred. It can't be improved. If you tamper with it, you'll ruin it. If you treat it like an object, you will lose it. There is a time for being ahead. There is a time for being behind. There's a time for being in motion, and there's a time for being at rest. There's a time for being vigorous, a time for being exhausted, a time for being safe, and a time for being in danger. The master sees things as they are, and without trying to control them, she lets them go their own way and resides at the center of the circle.
Those are beautiful words to live by, beautiful words to use to observe the world around us. And to me, that talks of acceptance.
Acceptance.
Accepting the situation for what it is.
Yeah. The pain, the potential pain of a situation is always created by your own mind.
Yeah. Expectations. Back to expectations. Yeah.
It's how you choose to meet that thing that's happening to you.
Yeah.
And some things are initially potentially painful, and some things are initially potentially pleasureful. That is why it's important not to chase pleasure, because there will be a backlash.
Yeah.
If you stay at the center of the circle, like the Tao said in this verse, doesn't mean you don't appreciate nice things.
Yeah.
It just means you don't lose your head every time you see a beautiful woman or a beautiful flower or taste a good meal. You just, oh man, this food is so wow. You don't have to go there.
Right.
You can just go, wow, this was great.
That's kind of like when I look at Snoopy's ass. When I first saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, look at that thing. And now I'm just like, yeah, there it is.
I don't know what that means.
I love her. But, I constantly tease her. But I tease because I love.
No, but oh my God!
I'm sorry.
No, but it's all about, like I said earlier, colors blind the eye, and sounds deafen the ear. If you overesteem things, you will get a karmic backlash from it.
I believe that, absolutely.
So giving. If you overesteem great men, people become powerless. Mm-hmm. If you overesteem possessions, people begin to steal.
Yeah.
It's just a consequence of our psychology, of the way we're put together, Oh, he's got this thing, and he's got this house and all these cars, and I don't. How come? Well, he's got money. Oh, how come I don't have money? Well, maybe you're stupid.
Jealousy.
Well, jealousy is born from this.
Yes.
But it comes from first thinking, well, he must have something I don't. He must be superior to me.
And how do I get it? How can I get that?
Oh, no, but you're not born into the right family. You don't have that name. You don't have that skin color. You don't have this. You don't have that. And then the monster starts to, get born out of that jealousy. And because you think that life is about all this, but it's not. You can just sit still in your couch and be blissful if you know what you are, and if you know how to be in the present moment. You don't need fuck all.
And here comes the value. Of meditation.
Yeah.
I've never had any schooling in it. I've never been instructed in it. Mm-hmm. But I am a believer in taking that certain amount of time every day. It could be 5 minutes. It could be 10, 15 minutes. It could be a half hour. It could be an entire hour before I go to sleep, as I'm laying in bed. But I like to take that time. I do take that time every single day to just, I don't know, a lot of people take time to go through the events of the day, to sort through it. I try to put aside the events of the day, sort through nothing, but just get rid of that sorting process and just breathe. And feel what I feel in that moment.
Yeah.
Is that meditation in the classic sense? Maybe. I don't know what meditation means, but that's what I do every day. I set aside that block of time, or maybe several times a day, where, okay, I'm going to turn the sound off of my phone.
You can meditate any
absolutely, anytime, anywhere, however often you'd like. But I make sure I do it at least once every day.
Here's how I explain meditation, and the way I use it, which is the way it works the best for me, is that because we're talking about getting emotional and getting, angry and all these or getting lustful or getting, all these evolved states of emotion that get us in trouble very often, or that's what gets us in trouble. So how is the mechanics behind that? So I when people ask me what's meditation, I usually say, okay, now I can give this test to the people listening. So all emotions are a byproduct of a thought. So if I tell you now, try to be angry right now without thinking of anything. Try to get angry now, but you're not allowed to think of anything.
Right.
You can't do it, right? It's impossible.
It's impossible.
Because emotions are a byproduct of thought.
Yep.
So now we know that. What's the mechanics? Well, when you sit in meditation, you learn this. You see a thought coming, flying. And then when you recognize the thought, you feel your emotion, and the emotion starts in your belly, and you feel that emotion rising up through your body, up to your mind in your head, somewhere behind your forehead, someplace. And the emotion connects to the thought. And that happens in a split second. It happens so quickly. Now, what meditation does is it gives you room to recognize that mechanic of the thought coming and the emotion locking onto the thought. So when you meditate, you learn how to make space between the emotion and the thought. Look at the emotion like an anchor for the thought, to the mind. So when you've meditated for a while, you learn to make space between the emotion and the thought. And if you make that space, the emotion can't lock onto the thought, and the thought just goes on by, and the emotion goes back again into the dantian, or the energy center in your belly.
Yeah.
And you got a glimpse of the agony you were about to enter, of going, God damn it, God damn that guy, I've said it so many times, how can he never listens? You didn't get into that state because you could tell that emotion,
it didn't connect.
It didn't connect. It didn't anchor that thought. And then you can see, but wait a minute, I'm observing my own thoughts. How can that be? That must mean I'm not my own thoughts. That thoughts are just something floating around that I tap into. It's not something I need to identify with.
Right.
And that's a eureka moment when you see that.
And I would also imagine that for some people, maybe the realization that you don't have to attach yourself to a thought. You can just let it pass.
It's just a mechanic.
That realization is probably very freeing. You get a sense of freedom, a sense of empowerment.
No doubt. It is shackles that you're freed from because you think that you are your thoughts. Right. You think that you have to, that you're obliged morally to react emotionally to this thought. Because, well, I'm a righteous person. Of course, I will get angry when I see this.
It sounds like that. Although I've never put a definition on this thing that I do, I've called it a form of meditation. But it sounds like it is meditation. This thing that I make sure I do every day.
It is,
and I've been doing that for years. And it's enhanced my life. It's made things a little bit more balanced, if I can use that term. Yeah,
that's a great term.
Yeah,
it's a great term.
How did you get into? When was your first exposure to Taoism? What led you to this way of living?
I had an experience, if you can say that. That was unexplainable at the time. Yeah, that was kind of mind blowing. So I just had to get to the bottom of it. And getting home from the tour that I was on when this happened, I got home to I was on tour, and basically what happened, people can Google this, but what happened to me was my Kundalini energy opened. I had a Kundalini experience.
What's Kundalini?
It's a life force energy that resides in the bottom of our spine, but it lies there dormant, and it can lie there dormant all your life. It doesn't have to be awakened.
Can you spell that for me? I want to look this up afterwards.
Kundalini. It's with a K. Yeah, Kundalini.
Yeah. Got it.
So that happened to me spontaneously. And that was such a mind-blowing experience. I described it as a bodily orgasm. It was just amazingly a release of...
So was this outpouring, this release of that energy that had been stored up?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you can Google it, and you can see that basically when that happens, it's kind of, your life is kind of... before and after that.
I see.
Yeah, you open a whole...
It's a transformative experience.
It's a transformative experience. But I didn't know what it was.
No.
So I had to get to the bottom of it. And when I got back to Norway, I was really into an American guitar player called Michael Hedges at the time. I really studied his music, and I read this interview with Michael where he talked about that he did Qigong. And I was like, well, whatever Michael's doing must be right, because I love him. So I just found Qigong. I Googled Qigong Norway, and this taiji.no came up, and name Pamela Hiley. Hi, Pamela, if you're listening.
Hi, Pamela. Future podcast guest, maybe?
And that kind of changed my life. She became kind of my first master, or my most important guru, telling me and showing me.
Is she here in Norway?
Yeah, she's based in Oslo. She's from Wales, but she's based in Oslo.
Yeah.
And she's a Wudang Taoist master. And she opened the doors into the Tao Te Ching for me, and into the Taoist way of living, and because I was raised a Christian, I had kind of a spiritual knowledge and understanding. I'd read the Bible and everything, but the Tao Te Ching says everything so humbly and simple.
It spoke to you in a way that Christianity didn't.
Well, listen, compared to... listen to this. This is the first verse in the Tao Te Ching. Now, the Tao, you can describe it, you can translate it into meaning the way, or the way of life, or the way to carry yourself in this life, or something. Mm-hmm. That's what the Tao means, that word.
Yeah.
Now, so the Tao Te Ching says, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name.
That stimulates to further thought.
It does, but it's so simple, because things you can put into words can never describe the truth.
And that's what makes it so interesting. It's so simple, and it answers the question.
Yeah.
But it also stimulates to further thought.
Because you don't get a doctrine readily made.
Right.
Okay, John, here's what you have to wear, here's what you have to say, here's what you have to do. Where's living in that? There's no living in that thing.
Exactly. There's no freedom in that.
There's no freedom in that. You have to realize this for yourself. And by the koans, as they have in the Zen, what's the sound of one hand clapping, and if a tree falls in the forest and all that, that's the most famous koans. But they're designed to make you think.
Yes.
They're not designed to give you...
It's not giving you a straightforward... Well, it is, but...
It's not straightforward. It's a clear answer, but it's an answer that challenges you.
Exactly, yeah.
But also tells you that you're smart enough to understand this.
Yeah.
And I believe that you are. It's you who don't believe in yourself. You are the one who says, oh, I can't figure this out. I think you can.
But see, now that matches very... I'm a Christian, raised a Christian, and I still am. I live my life according to what I believe are the Christian principles as described in the Bible. Mm-hmm. I think, and I don't want to judge anyone, but let me just talk about me. I don't make...
Thou shalt not judge.
Thou shalt not judge. But I don't make Christianity, I don't make the Bible complicated. I think it's very easy to do, and I see that people do that. But I think my understanding of the Bible and the way I've always been taught through the Bible, to me, has been quite simple. It's full of symbolism, mm-hmm. which, like we are now discussing in Taoism, stimulates to further thought.
Yeah.
It counts on, to me, the Bible counts on me being smart enough to read what I read, or take in the lesson that I'm taking in, and then be able to apply it, interpret it, and apply it to my life. Not to the lives of others in a judgmental way, but apply it to my life.
Yeah.
How is this lesson in the Bible, in this chapter and verse, going to enhance my life?
Yeah.
What can I learn about it?
think that's the way you should use the Bible.
Exactly. But I think the problem can come is if I were to make it complicated. And I wonder if the Bible can be complicated if people take it in a more literal sense. In other words, they remove all thought and they just read what they read and then they go with that. Yeah. I believe that like Taoism, the Bible is full of passages that give an answer, but they stimulate to thought. I'm blending Norwegian and English, sorry. But it stimulates to thought. It stimulates to personal interpretation. And as it says in the Bible, thou shalt not judge. Who am I to say that your way of looking at the Bible is wrong and my way is right? I can only look at it the way I look at it, and I can only apply it to my life the way I apply it to my life.
Yeah.
That's why I've never studied Taoism or Buddhism in the true sense of studying it, but I am familiar with it, and I don't see conflict between Christianity and Taoism or Buddhism.
Just think about what I just read, the first verse in the Tao Te Ching. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. How does the Bible start? In the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Now that's a horribly difficult way of saying the word that can be said is not the true word. But it's the exact same thing. If you try to put... Now, this is my problem with Christianity. Because what Christianity is, not the husk of it, but what it is that it takes away the... I lost it now. I forgot what I was going to say. But that happens so many times. But okay, let me put it this way. Jesus wasn't a Christian, right?
No, he wasn't.
No, how could he be?
Exactly. Christianity wasn't there before him, so how could he be a Christian?
So I want to be what Jesus was. See? So I can't be a Christian. Because,
isn't that interesting? Yeah.
Because and also a thing I challenge Christian people with often is I say, Judas, my hero. And people go, what? Judas was a hero. Didn't you know? I said,
that, yeah.
I'll explain that. Well, to be a Christian, you have to believe this one fundamental thing. That God sent his son, because we're all born into sin. You can hear that I don't agree with this. We're all born into sin, but God sent his son, Jesus, to die for our sins so we could get eternal life. That's kind of the premise that you have to believe if you want to be a Christian. That is kind of the core of it all. Mm-hmm. Now, who was it who made all this happen? That was Judas. If Judas
hadn't done what
he did, Jesus wouldn't be crucified, and he would just hop along merrily living his life. So looking at it that way, Judas was the catalyst. He was kind of the thing you had to have in the drink to make it work, you know?
But one contention I have with...
but I don't believe in sin, so
Well, let me talk about sin. One contention that I have with some Christians is that whole concept of being born into sin. I don't believe that. I would ask a Christian to show me the passage in the Bible that says that we are born into sin.
It says nowhere.
I believe that is a man-made concept.
It is.
I cannot believe that the God that I believe in, or the entity that anyone believes in, would curse us with bad intention, with malicious intent, and create us in such a way that we are immediately sinners. I cannot look at my children.
It's madness.
And say that they are sinners. I believe that is a man-made construct.
It is.
And
Jesus never said anything like that.
He never said anything.
He said, you all can be like me.
Yes.
But you have to understand what I understand. That's what he means when he says, only through me and all that stuff. That is really, really bad translations. What he really said was, you have to understand and realize what I have realized.
And therein comes that stimulation to thought and true studiousness, and truly studying the words of the Bible. I believe that the lazy man or woman, men tend to be more lazy than
you sound like Monty Python. Why always all about women, Stan?
But the lazy man or woman just reads the Bible and then runs with it. The scholar, the one who truly wants to expand their knowledge, will read it, see the message in it, study it, and then apply it properly to their life.
Yeah.
And that's what I choose to do.
Yeah. Paul, he kind of put it out there, in a sensible way. But I think Paul is, in modern Christianity, is totally misunderstood.
How so?
I don't think he said, if you apply what he said about men and women, if you apply that not to our dynamics as a human male and a human female, but to the same way of thinking as the Taoistic yin and yang.
Okay.
Yeah. So when Paul is talking about male and female, he's not talking about the human male and female. He's talking about the male and female energies. Energy
forces.
Yeah. So when Paul says that a woman should be silent, he's not talking about a human female. He's talking about our subconscious, because our hyperconsciousness, which you can call male,
yes,
is where we learn, but our subconscious is where we act. So the subconscious never does any learning, it just puts into action we already know.
It's the more primal aspect of ourselves.
Yeah. Or you can say it's the acting out of who we are.
Yes.
So but it confuses us when you say, so that's female, so that's bad, so that's passive. No, it's just a dynamic.
It's just a dynamic, and I also believe that a lot.
So if you read, just let me finish. Yeah, so if you read Paul like that, it's mind blowing.
Yeah,
because then it's Taoism basically,
and that is more in alignment with the way I have taken in my learning. Mm-hmm. My learning of the Bible passages. I believe, and this comes from taking it in, studying it, and then properly applying it. Mm-hmm. I believe that at some point in history, who knows, maybe with the rise of the Catholic Church, maybe in the age of Renaissance and Reformation, man, not God, not this spiritual thing that exists, but mankind found a reason that would be best serving for the hierarchy. And at that time, maybe the Catholic Church, in the year 1100 or whatever, they found a need to change people's perspective, people's interpretation of of Christianity, in order to make themselves more powerful. So the Bible was reinterpreted. Mm-hmm. The Bible was rewritten. Mm-hmm. There was this male hierarchy that wanted to solidify their power, and teachings were twisted in order to put women in a much more subservient position in society. Yeah. And I believe that to a large degree, that is how people are still living to this day.
Yeah.
people who call themselves Christians are still living after those old, twisted interpretations of the Bible. I'm not a scholar, so to speak. I'm self-schooled in these things, and it's my thought. It's my way of interpreting what I've been taught and what I've read.
I don't think you have to be a scholar. I think if we're going to talk about God in that sense, and let's do that now for a couple of minutes.
Sure.
I believe that we are God expressing himself. So therefore, God's intelligence is within each and every one of us.
Yep.
And I have to trust in God. That, trusting in God is just knowing. No, but I'm going to go down this road because I just know, well, how do you know? Well, I can't, the word is with God. It's unutterable. This is just something I know. Well, is it empirically, scientifically? No, it's not. But you guys do that because that's a good thing.
Sure.
Because you're just eventually going to confirm what I know. But that doesn't mean that because
that's called faith. That's called faith.
Well, you can call it faith, I guess. But I have had so many synchronicities in my life and way too many occasions where I've felt that this is just naturally God's will, what's going on here. And I learn from it. And so I don't need to read a paper to make a choice. Very often I can just consult with my gut feeling.
Yeah.
And you have to be aware of the difference between ego and self when you apply this. Because you have to know where it's your ego coming in and saying, oh, you want to do that because that's going to be beneficial for you, husband. You have to recognize that voice or else it won't work. Sure. But if you recognize that voice, you can say, oh, well, I wanted to do that now, but that was just my ego talking, so that means I must do the opposite. Or you can say, oh, I should go down there, and you look for the ego and it's nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
So you know it's God then. Or you. Or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I want to say this other thing. People talk about life as a journey. Like that's been the modern way of looking at life.
Life is a journey. Yeah. You see it on memes all over the place.
Yeah. I don't use that description.
No. How do you do it?
I say that life is like a flower. If you can, like, life blooms.
Yeah.
Because our vessels, our bodies can move around. Okay, that's sure. But we are more like a rooted flower. And our life, what is known as the life journey, is more like a flower opening up and blossoming.
I see.
And the better soil and the better nourishment you have for your roots, the more beautiful and open that flower is going to be. And when that flower's bloom to its full potential, it'll lose its petals, and the whole process starts again. Now, to me, that's a very beautiful way of looking at it.
Sure, absolutely.
Rather than the cradle to the grave kind of way, because it seems so. I get a little miffed out by that, It's just, oh, well, the journey's over, and blah, blah, blah. More than a process, that kind of, because when a process is done, it starts over. So
that's right, yeah. Well, what does Taoism say about the afterlife?
Nothing.
So what happens then when we, as a flower, when we then die? What happens to our consciousness?
Well, I believe, so do most Taoists, I guess, is that consciousness, and this is the big debate that's going on in this time.
Yeah.
What is consciousness? No one can answer, but very many things point to consciousness being not created in our minds, but something communal.
Yes.
I believe that fully. That consciousness is something outside of us that we tap into. And it's expandable, and it's refinable, and it's right now there's a hierarchy. There's people who live unconsciously, and there's a few percentage that live consciously, that have opened up their consciousness to all the connections that there are.
Yeah.
So, and that is my responsibility as a human individual, is to not get stuck at one low level of consciousness, but rather challenging myself and expanding my consciousness.
That higher level of awareness that we spoke of.
Yeah. And when you're on that path, like, I can't say that now, because if you say that, all lives matter, or I'm not a racist, or I don't see color, even that has become dangerous to say now. And I can understand why people say that. But for me, when you're on that path, I literally do not think about skin color, for instance, when I meet people.
Right.
And people can believe me or not, but
I believe that.
Because I don't. Oh yeah, that's right. You're probably from somewhere else, but that's not my initial thought.
No.
My initial feeling is the energy field, the aura of the individual, and if that aura is love, like with you, John. That's all I need.
That's all you need. Yeah.
If that aura is filled with suspicious energies, then I start to go, where is this person from, and how does he look, and or then first I start to discriminate. But if what I met with is just love, I don't have any need for any more information.
And I totally agree with that. I'm a first impression kind of guy. It doesn't matter what you look like, whether you're male or female, what color you are, where you're from. It's just the feeling is what it is.
Yeah.
But having said that, I am aware of my blackness.
I bet you are.
But I don't let it dictate how I act, who I hang out with, what I say or do. And my hope is that other people will not judge me by my blackness. And if they do, well, then there's some issues that arise from that. But my hope is that they won't do that. I understand when people say they don't see color. I understand that they're saying that from a place of what they see as understanding, or they're coming from a place of love, and they're saying that not to be hostile. But I would say that it's okay if you see my color. Just please don't treat me any different because of it.
Yeah.
Because I am a different color. You see that. But don't let that otherness dictate how you treat me. I mean, I say don't let it. It's not like there's consequences if you do that. I'll just distance myself to avoid that conflict. Yeah. But my hope is that people would never let that come in the way of how they treat me. I know it does, but my hope is that it doesn't. So seeing color, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Just be nice.
It's that simple, Just
it really is. Just be nice. Open yourself up for the experience of meeting a new person. That's a fantastic experience if you open yourself up to it and you feel. There's some people who radiate something. It's a feeling that I can get from them. I get it with you. I got it from my wife when I first met her. I got it from my grandmother. It's just, maybe it's the aura.
Yeah, and it's the consciousness. It's our individual kind of way of being conscious, but it's also a hive consciousness.
Sure.
And a lot of thoughts, like, at least for me, when you're as open as I am, you sometimes get other people's thoughts in your head.
Yeah.
And knowing the difference is very important, because but I think most people haven't learned to discriminate between their own thoughts and someone else's, or the hive collective thing. And then there's a lot of ugliness, because there's a lot of we have a pain body. Eckhart Tolle talks about the pain body, and it's a really good way of speaking about it. And we have a collective pain body, which is all the wrongs that we've done to each other through the generations,
I see, yeah.
And it creates a pain body. It creates an unreleased energy of pain. And that pain body comes up every now and then and begs for release.
I see.
But we do not know yet how to release it, so we just nourish it, and we just make the pain body repeat itself in a loop. So, It comes up every second 2 weeks. You get the pain body coming back, going, you need some conflict now, Espen. You haven't had conflict in your life for a couple of weeks. So get provoked by that guy now.
Yeah.
And before I just let that happen, now I know about it. So I can say, oh, that's the pain body talking. I'm not going to speak to that guy then, you know? Because I'll just create the loop. I'll just nourish the loop.
This is the first I've heard of the concept of the pain body, so that's new to me. However, that thing about conflict that you're talking about, that is something that I live by. My wife Snoopy will tell you that it is to my detriment that I avoid conflict. She has told me for decades now, since we've been together, that I should be more open to conflict, address certain things when I met with that resistance or conflict. I can't do that. I don't believe.
Maybe you're a little too much good cop in you. Maybe you got that good cop thing going a little too strong.
No, because I believe the good cop, when I think of good cop, I think of a false goodness in order to achieve a result. And on a little side note, yes, I was a police officer, but I haven't been a police officer for 20 years now. So that way of thinking, it's still there. But the good cop way of approaching things, I think, is far removed from my daily routine. I think there's a sense of falseness in that good cop type of thing.
Wow, interesting.
I do.
I'd love to hear about that, but I guess that's a different podcast as well.
That's a different podcast. Maybe we'll come back to it. But I can say this. To me, when I think of the good cop versus the bad cop, I believe that the good cop and bad cop, maybe it's a type of yin and yang, they cooperate in order to bring about a result that they desire, not a result that is true.
I see.
But a result that is desired, and that's something not else. Necessarily the truth.
No.
So there's a certain amount of falseness in the good cop, and there's also a certain amount of falseness in the bad cop. The good cop doesn't really want to be good in the traditional sense. The bad cop doesn't want to necessarily be bad in the traditional sense. They're playing a role in order to bring about a result. So there's a certain amount of falseness in that. So if I'm good, it's good. I'm good quite consciously and because I want to be good, and let that goodness bring about the result that it brings. The discussion that I've been having for decades with my wife is that she feels that goodness brings about a result that may be true, but it may not be what is best for me. But I would rather have the truth.
Can't you have both, do you think?
Sure. Absolutely. But I don't think it always matches up.
But maybe that's your kind of work. Maybe that's your thing to work on. Because I can really see, I recognize that putting yourself, my mom is horrible that way, putting herself last, doing everything for everybody else. And I can say, Mom, you're tired now. How about you pampering yourself for a while there, Yeah,
but I don't put myself last, because if we go back to what I was saying earlier, and I've said this several times on my podcast, and even off of my podcast, just in conversations with people, I believe in making myself as prepared as possible for all things life.
That's very Taoist.
Okay, yeah, see? And again, I'm not a student of Taoism, but this is just my...
Always be prepared. Be aware.
Exactly.
You don't be alert and on your tiptoes. That's not what it means. It means every moment is sacred.
Exactly.
So be aware of every moment.
Exactly.
Because it's your life there.
So I don't sometimes when my wife or maybe others interpret me as putting myself last, that's not what I'm doing. I'm just following the path that I see before me, preparing myself for whatever that result is. And if that result is observed by others, or maybe even observed by myself as not being in my best interest, it is the true result, because I have walked the true path.
It's fantastic.
And then that result may be a challenge in my life, but I look at that challenge as an opportunity for even more growth.
That's very Taoist. It's a Taoist story about a monk that lived up on a hill, an old monk, and down in the city there was this young girl, and she got pregnant. Mm-hmm. And she was very embarrassed, and she had to tell her parents, that I got pregnant. And they got very upset and asked who got her pregnant. And she said, well, it was the monk living up on the hill. So the baby was born, and her parents said, well, you were too young to take care of a child, so this old man should take responsibility. So they walk up to all the steps up to the monk living on the hill and say that you made our daughter pregnant, and this is the result, and it's your responsibility now to take care of this child. And the monk replied, well, if that's how it is, and took in the child and raised the child as his own. Well, like the parents said, this is your work, and the little child grew up and became 15, 16 years old, and all these times passed, and the girl had now become a woman, and she of course had lied because it was her neighbor boy, the boy,
the monk.
Not the monk. It was that other 15-year-old guy, the boy in the house next door, and they had been fooling around, and he was the guy. But you have to keep in mind that the monk had now raised this child as his own. So the parents, when the girl told her parents that the truth story, they became very upset and very embarrassed because they had forced this child up onto this monk, saying that he had done a bad thing. So they went up to the monk again and said, we are so sorry for what we did to you. We will have to take the child back because it's not your child. You were innocent all the time. And the monk replied, well, if that's the way it is. So that's... And imagine the emotional depths of connecting to another human being, raising a child, But the way the monk said, he knew when he got the child, this is not my child.
Right.
But he could read from the situation, this is no time for me to talk about my innocence. He just said, well, if that's the way.
If that's what it
of course, this is a story meant to illustrate something, but it's meant to illustrate how you meet challenges. Yeah. Don't let your emotions get into it. Don't get all fired up about stuff.
Exactly. And that is that is exactly how I try to live my life. And again, if I can kind of use my powerlifting in a symbolic way for my life. You mentioned don't get all fired up. I am very inspired.
That's a different thing. That's a different thing.
But I have what I think is a sense, an aura of calmness around that inspiration. I can get on the powerlifting bar and I'm gonna go for a national record on the squat. And I feel the adrenaline, and I'm ready to go, and I'm very motivated, very inspired, but I'm not yelling and screaming like a wild man. Now, some powerlifters do that, and hats off to them if that's the way they prepare for a monumental lift like that. But I have to approach it with a sense of calm. Not control, because I'm not in control. Whatever happens is going to happen. I'm not in control of the situation, but I'm approaching the situation. I'm approaching that challenge, if you will, with a sense of calmness. There is calm in my focus. I'm not fired up, so to speak. I'm not. There's no outward expression of chaos as I approach that challenge, and I try to walk through my life with that same approach to challenges.
There is one kind of amount of energy.
Yep.
And how do you disperse that energy? How do
there you go.
So you can have little openings going, and letting little bits of energy out. Or you could be so focused and so skilled that you can focus that energy into one pinpoint. And if you're managing that is master level. That is what Bruce Lee, talked about when you get all that energy into one finger and you can do the 1-inch finger punch thing, or the 5-finger death punch, or whatever it's called.
The 1-inch punch,
Yeah, and that's all about focusing and using mental power to focus that energy into one kind of
because
arrowhead.
I believe those unnecessary, there can be a lot of unnecessary, as you say, leakages or explosions of that energy, and you're wasting it in the sense that you will then be weaker when you actually meet the challenge.
Exactly. But without the proper training and understanding of how this works, which we don't have in the West, you have to figure it out yourself.
And when I started to figure that out, we can go all the way back to when I was, to when I was in high school playing football, American football, not soccer, but American football. And I had a routine. It was there's a lot of Zen in this routine where I would, school would let out at like 3:00 or whatever on a Friday. And the game time wasn't until 8:00 at night, but I would stay at school. I would walk down to the locker room. I would lay down on the bench all by myself and close my eyes and take a nap, however long that was. And then I would get up, and then by this time, our town had gotten the first McDonald's. I would walk down the hill from the school to the McDonald's, get 2 Big Macs, walk back up to the locker room, eat those alone. Lay down on the bench, take another nap. And then I would do this, then I would do that, then I would do the other. And then on the field, normally football teams will stretch out and go through their warm-up routine together. I would go off by myself and basically just pace the length of the field back and forth. And then it would be game time. And I would do that before every game, every Friday. And it was a mental process. It was a removing of any doubts about how things were going to go. It was a visualization. I could picture, I was a running back, a tailback. I could picture myself getting the football, running through the field, maybe stiff arming a defender. I would visualize this over. And when I would take naps, I would be dreaming about playing that evening's game. It was a mental process. So that by the time I got to, and before the game, everybody else would be, here we go, smacking each other on the helmet and
you didn't need that.
I kept all of that in so that when I would get on the field to perform, now I'm releasing that energy. And ever since then, I have always felt that those explosions of aggression and energy were a waste of time, and they make me weaker for when I actually am confronted with the challenge. So I internalize all that into thought.
It sounds like a master in play, if you ask me, when it comes to energy, and like a Zen master way of thinking. And I believe that to be 100% true, that it's difficult to focus your energy like that. It's very difficult.
But again, I've been doing it since I was a kid. This is when I was 16, 17 years old.
You have a naturally, I think if you look at babies, they're all natural. They can do that. Yeah. But then you kind of get covered with all these ideas.
You get tainted by life.
You get tainted by life. So you have to somehow just keep a thread of that alive, like you probably did since you had this as a teenager. You kept some of that alive.
And I've just been building on that ever since.
And you've been building on that. And that's basically it. That's Zen. That's
how does that jive? How does that jive with Christianity? You've said several times, that's very Taoist.
Yeah.
But I'm a Christian. Well, what do you say? I have something I can say to that, but what do you say to that? And again, I don't study. Do
you mean in the lectures, in the scripture, and kind of quotes and whatnot? In that context, do you mean?
Well, in the context that when I describe my views or my actions in certain situations, and you'll say, that's very Taoist, but I'm not a student of Taoism. I'm a student of Christianity.
Well, to me, listen, you have to.
I agree with you. It is very Taoist.
You have to consider this, that I believe that there's only one truth. Yeah.
And
No, but there is only one truth.
But is there an and?
No, because there's only...
I'll say there's an and.
Okay.
There is only one truth, and there are many ways to that truth.
Sure.
There's my and.
Sure.
In other words, that I, as one who has been raised in Christianity and one who has studied, not in a scholarly sense, but just in a life sense, studied Christianity in my way, that is my path, is through Christianity, but it's intertwined with other faiths, and you as a Taoist can agree with very much of what I'm saying. And likewise,
I used to be a Christian. Like I said earlier in our talk, the thing is that I don't believe in sin. I don't believe in a punishing God. I believe all this is man-made. I don't believe.
Totally agree.
Yeah, so I don't. But that's the premise for being a Christian. So that's the problem I have with all religions that contain dogma.
Yeah.
Because we don't need dogma, because we are basically God.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have the potential for Christ awareness. So when people say, "Oh, Jesus, oh, thank God for Jesus, oh, Jesus, you're in my life," and all that, to me that's sacrilege. Because Jesus was a man who had the Christ consciousness. And he said, everything I do, you can do. Which means you can also have Christ consciousness. So I use Jesus as an inspiration.
Yes.
For, like I use the Buddha for inspiration, or Lao Tse, or any of those people that have been enlightened beings, masters. And I use them as inspiration for myself to reach the place of the Christ consciousness.
Yeah.
And then nothing else matters.
And I guess I'm the mirror image of that, in that my foundation is in Christianity, but I can look at things in Taoism or Buddhism or Islam or Judaism and find inspiration and find something to learn from there.
Sure.
And I think the problems arise and the prejudices arise when people close their minds to any other way of learning about God and spirituality.
All these things are tools on our way to a place where we can transcend these tools. So religion has been a tool that we don't need anymore.
I agree with that.
We need spirituality.
Thank you. I've had a couple of other guests where I've talked about this thing where they say, "Well, I'm not religious." I'm like, "Oh, that's fine." I said, "But I bet you're spiritual." I think everybody to a certain degree is spiritual. There is something that you aspire to be or aspire to follow in order to make yourself more enlightened, and that is spirituality.
Yeah.
And I think everyone has that to a certain degree. You may or may not be aware of it. You may or may not have consciously thought on it or studied it, but spirituality is there for the taking for anybody. But I want to say something about sin. I do believe that there is sin. I don't believe we're born into it. But I believe that we can make conscious decisions to do things that we know will harm others.
Yes, of course. But
can that be defined as sin?
For me, the word sin is so connected to the Christian concept of being a sinner. The way I look at it is that I believe that we are all an expression of God.
Yeah.
So when we're aligned with that knowledge, we're aligned with the universe and with God, and we are in the light. We're in the light.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are the light, and we're in the light. It's the same as the first word. The word that can be spoken is not the correct word.
Right.
So we are the light, and we are in the light, and we are channeling the light, and we are being the light, and we are the light. And then there are stages of removing yourself from the light, all the way to complete darkness. And that stage is what people call sins.
Yeah.
I just call it being removed from the light.
I see.
And the longer away from the light you are, the more prone you are to doing activities that will harm yourself and others. So that's basically...
But isn't that just a question of how you term it? Some people will call that sin. You will call it moving away from the light.
Yeah, but I like to term it with new words that are not so full of stigma.
I see. I understand. Yeah. Okay. I thought we were going to disagree on something, but actually we agree. It's just the terminology, I think, that we...
Yeah. So I don't call it sin. I just call it not being in the light.
I see.
And when you're not in the
that's
light,
understandable. Yeah,
it's dark.
Yeah.
So you do silly things in the dark when you can't see. You
bumbling around.
You bumble around. You tear things down from the table.
Might step on someone's foot.
Step on people's foot when it's dark. So you need the light so you can see. Oh, I have to step over there because your foot is there. You know.
Well, there comes the definition of enlightenment. Yeah.
There you go.
We are so smart.
maybe not. Yeah, well, I don't know. It's smart. That would be up to other people to judge. But at least we are willing to learn.
We're learning and talking.
And we understand that putting our... Like, I'm the first one to take a belief that I had. If someone... If I get proof that belief is just gibberish or silly, I'm like, oh, great! I can get rid of that thought.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of people are going, but I've believed this for my whole life, and
it's so much of
this
that.
is precious to me. And I'm like, why is that precious to you? It's just a belief.
We see that so much today, and I think
you shouldn't smoke cigarettes. It's bad. It's sinful. I don't think it's sinful. It's bad for you. Yeah. But sometimes there's a situation where you sit looking out over the fjords with a good friend, and you just finished a beer, and he opens his packet Luckies, and he says, hey, buddy, want a cigarette? And then you, yeah, sure I do. And you take that cigarette, and you just sit there in silence, smoking that cigarette with your friend.
There's no sin in that.
There's no sin in that.
No.
Now, if the first thing you think about in the morning is, I need my cigarette because I can't get out of bed,
well, then you have an issue.
You have an issue.
You have an issue that should be dealt with. But I think people label things like that as sin. And again, this goes back to these old reinterpretations of the Bible that happened, hundreds, if not 1,000 years ago, that has put this man-made construct around the whole issue of spiritualism and religion. And that is where we go wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're back. That was a microsecond for you people, but we took a 5-minute break here for physiological reasons. This is, man, we've been talking for a long time.
I know. A lot of editing for you.
No, not really. Not really.
No, but I was looking for. We're talking about the Bible and the Taoist books and everything, but and is it the Lamentations for Forkynneren?
Lamentations, yeah.
But in Norwegian, it's Forkynneren. I don't think is that the same book as the Lamentations. I think maybe.
You talking about in the Old Testament?
Yeah.
Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, Numbers, Song of Solomon. Song of Solomon. No.
It's what I call. It's what's called in the Norwegian version is Forkynneren. I'll see what it is in Norwegian.
Let's see. Let me just look this up. Books of the Old Testament, because I just don't know. I just don't know the direct translation of some of the books.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Let's see here now. Oh, I've got it. Ecclesiastes.
There we go. Yeah.
That's it. If I was to pick out one book of the Bible, and discard the rest, that's the one I'd pick out.
Really? Why? Interesting.
Because everything is in that book. You just have to do all the work. You don't have any help. But that's basically the closest you get to the Tao Te Ching when it comes to the philosophy of living your life according to what is God or Tao or the universe or whatever you want to call it.
But that's the book you feel is most like...
Yeah, that's the one who's got the most potent and direct communication.
I'm going to read that again. I've read the Bible cover to cover several times. First time I did it, I was maybe 12 years old. Old and New Testament. I'm going to go back and check out Ecclesiastes.
Check out Ecclesiastes, because that's the deal. That's where it's at for me.
I hope that people, when they listen to us now, we follow two different, I almost said totally different faiths, but they're not totally different. They're quite similar.
Because we're human.
We follow two different faiths, and yet we have so much where we agree. We haven't disagreed on anything as we've been talking about spirituality here.
No.
And I think that is such an interesting thing. And I also think it is a realization of the foolishness and futility of these, if not wars, then these disagreements that different religions have, because there is so much commonality.
Religions are man-made ways of trying to comprehend.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sooner or later, and sooner, I hope, we will be able to lose all of that because we understand now.
I don't look at it. I refuse to look at it as disagreement, from Christianity to Islam or Christianity to whatever. I don't want to look at it as disagreement. I want to look at it as difference of interpretation, and then I want to engage in discussion because I will most likely learn something from that discussion.
Yeah. And listen, that's the approach to have, and also so God creates the planet Earth, and he says, okay, I'll put some white people over here, and they're going to believe in me in this way, and then I'm going to put some black people over here, and I'm going to make them believe me in this other way that'll make conflict between... I don't think so.
All of that is man-made.
I don't think God is like that.
No, I don't.
I don't even think God speaks a language that we do. God's language is energy. Or, to pinpoint it even further, God's language is love. And I'm not talking about what we call love, which is romantic love or all that stuff. That's something else.
It's something different.
Yeah, I'm talking about the fuel that drives everything. And that's love. And that's a love that doesn't discriminate. And that's love that doesn't... It's just there,
How often do you talk about these things?
Not very often.
And I asked that, there's a meaning behind me asking that question, because as a spiritual man myself, I find it very rare here in Norway to be able to talk about that, because most people here don't want to engage in this kind of conversation. Is that your experience as well?
Yes, but I believe that sitting here speaking with you about this is kind of my job now.
Okay.
Yeah, because these are insights that most people don't have time to do.
That's
because
true.
They're busy with living their lives.
That's true.
I've chosen a way of life that has actually... Part of my way of life is actually doing this work.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's artists have been doing this since the dawn of time,
Yeah.
Contemplating life and then expressing life through art. And if you want to boil it down, that's basically what it is. So it's my job figuring out these things. And then I talk to people, and I see people are stuck in kind of beliefs that, this has to be like that, and we have to do it this way because of that, and I'm like, well, that's not quite true. There are different ways of approaching.
Yes.
And life is all about perspective, and we'll get into this, and they can say, how do you know? And I'm like, well, I'll tell you how I know. And there's That's how, and that's my job. It doesn't mean that I'm a better person than you.
Oh, no.
It means that you do what you do, and I do what I do. And together we can see, this was valuable for me, and that was valuable for me that you did this. And we can inter-exchange and we can grow together. But if I go, no, the only way to do one thing is like this, I'm like, well, that's not the approach to have. You have to be open, and you discard what doesn't resonate. And if it doesn't resonate, you see why doesn't it resonate. And if it's a silly reason, if it's your ego coming in,
you'll know it. You'll recognize it.
You'll recognize it.
Yeah.
But if it's the truth vibrates at a certain frequency, and you know the truth.
You feel it when it happens. Yeah.
It's no. You don't need a degree or PhD or whatnot to do. More times than less times, it's a advantage not to have any degrees at all, because you're not
that degree
brainwashed.
Can be kind of rigid. It can kind of fence you in. Fence you in, and you don't have as broad of a view of the issue.
Exactly.
I knew there was a reason I liked you.
Well,
I guess it wasn't. I guess it just wasn't meant to be that I should have met you before now, because I became aware of you when you had, as I said, I was fortunate enough to be able to play with Jørgen Olsen for a while, and then you got into that duo with him. And I was like, oh, this is cool, because I had my respect for Jørgen, and I had heard about you before, never met you. And I'm like, I should go through Jørgen to be able to meet Espen, to be able to meet you. And it just never happened. It didn't materialize. But here we are. Here we are. Here we sit today.
And and everything happens when it's supposed to.
I think so. I truly believe that. I can't rush things.
Remember what Gandalf said in The Lord of the Rings? A wizard is never late, Frodo Baggins, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.
And there you go. You have a Lord of the Rings aspect to you. You've got the graying beard, the long hair.
Yeah.
Are you? Can it be said that your love of those kinds of stories opened you up to an acceptance of the teachings of Taoism? There's a certain otherworldly sense to Taoism, in that, I shouldn't say otherworldly, there is a deeper spiritual sense around the teachings of Taoism. And I believe that you have to be a certain kind of person with a certain kind of mentality to accept those teachings. And that openness and that acceptance had to have come from somewhere. Does it come from some place in your childhood?
It comes from my childhood, but it basically comes from, like, when I was a child, I channeled beings. Yeah, fourth dimension beings from the Pleiades. Now I'm getting out there.
No, let's go out there. Let's cut the chains. Break the chains. Let's go out there.
So we're living in the third dimension. There are 7 dimensions of consciousness. The third dimension is the one we're living in right now. The tactile walking on earth on our 2 feet.
The seeing, the touching, the
hurting. The hurting. Yeah, most importantly, the hurting. We need to hurt.
That which we define as the physical realm and the pain that is in this realm.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's necessary for us to transcend. Basically, the universe is God learning to know himself, or experiencing himself, or herself, or itself. So it's all about that energy is refined through materializing itself.
Yeah.
And that process, because we the material part of being always wants to settle. We know that, we like to settle on the couch.
Yeah.
We like to, I'm glad this is done. I can rest now.
Yeah.
This is a known feeling, and that's built into the system.
Yes.
But there's not always a time for that. Sometimes we have to push through things to get to a more refined. If you think about alchemy, to get to the gold, you have to go through processes.
Right.
And those processes can be painful.
Yes.
And we need to get our ass kicked to get through those processes.
Right.
So that's why we experience this painful state. It's a very short-lived place to be at the third stage.
Yeah.
Stage 4 and stage 5, where supposedly Jesus is right now, being a spiritual guide and communicating down through channels as an angel.
Yeah.
But this is when you get up to kind of the pure light being dimensions. The pain we experience here in the third dimension is no longer.
I see.
Yeah. So there's people who know more about this than me, but this is kind of an overview. So we are now living through the third dimension, and if we haven't learned what we're supposed to, we get reborn again and again until we learn what we're supposed to, and then we get the choice to become basically light beings or angels or whatever you want to call it. And then you don't have to connect with this physical body anymore.
Exactly.
No.
Let me ask you this. What are your thoughts on, I asked you earlier, what does the Tao teach of the afterlife? Okay, now, if you are, for those of us who don't learn the lessons that we have to learn, and we have to go back and start all over again, is it possible to have memory of those previous lives? If we are someone who has been recycled through this third dimension, is it possible to have any conscious memory?
No. Well,
is it something that could be achieved through?
There are people who say they can remember past lives. I don't say that that's not true or whatnot. But the thing is that for us to be able to learn, we cannot remember. Because if we knew the premises of going into this life beforehand, we could just, I know the end of this story, so I don't have to do anything. We have to kind of believe that this is a one chance. We're here for this one lifetime. We have to do the right thing. We have to have this kind of incentive when we start out.
Right.
So if we knew kind of how it all worked, it would just destroy the whole system.
Well, what about people who claim to not be spiritual? They're definitely not religious by their own choice, but they also claim to not be spiritual. In other words, they're in this life and they have nothing to drive them, nothing to strive to achieve. In other words, passing through to the next dimension. Yeah. What about those people who?
It's about opening up.
Yeah.
So some people can be so either from their inherited pain body, from ancestors. Or from social programming about how things are. Yeah. This is the way the world works, and don't you forget it. Yeah. So you can be kind of get stuck in a little narrow frame.
I see.
This is how the world is, and you have no way of escaping that frame. So that's when you
Some people don't even want to escape that.
No, because
they're content with.
Yes, because it's safe.
Yeah.
So you have to. You mustn't undermine people's longing for safety. So if you say that, but the frame you're living in, the world doesn't look like that. You have potential to tear down the whole reality concept for that person, and that's a scary thing.
Is that why people resist?
Yeah, because it's scary.
Knowledge.
Yes, because it's scary, and you have to have compassion for that fright.
Right.
It's very, very sensible in a way to be afraid of that.
I see.
So being angry and ridiculing people who are like that is not the way to go.
No.
You always meet that kind of...
You have to meet it with understanding.
With understanding and compassion.
Yeah.
And saying, I can easily see how you get stuck in that, and you can't say that people are stuck, because then they'll be, how dare you?
You're placing your judgment on them if you use terms like that.
Jesus said it.
Yeah.
Don't judge. Yeah. Or you will get judged too.
Yeah.
So judgment and putting things in some, like bad things, good things, that way of thinking about it is not a good system to getting through these challenges.
Right.
But if you say that, well, it's not bad to do that, or it's not good to do that, it's just a consequence of the way you carry yourself. So since you carry yourself in this specific way, this is always the result.
Right.
You get to this place every time because you're unconscious in the doings of everyday life.
If you don't change your thoughts, you're not going to change your behavior. If you're not going to change your behavior, you're not going to change the results.
Yeah, it's
interchangeable.
And that's going to be your destiny.
Yes.
That is why the Matrix was right. Neo is right in the Matrix when he says, "Do you believe in destiny, Neo?" When Morpheus says that. And Neo says, "No, because I don't like the thought of not being in control of my own life."
I see.
And that's what's happening. If you're not conscious that this is the way it works, you will just wander in a loop and repeat all the same things again and again and again, and then you will believe, oh, this is my destiny, to always end up with a bad woman, to always end up with a bad job, to never get a #1 hit on the radio. It's my destiny. And then because that's your thought, that's how you carry yourself, that becomes the truth.
By the way, I think I'm the last person on the earth who has not seen The Matrix.
Oh, really? Oh, you should see it.
I've seen that clip that you just quoted, but I have not seen that movie. I don't know what's wrong with me. I have never seen it.
Oh, it's a great movie.
It is actually, I actually have a list on my telephone of of movies that I or books that I need to read, or movies that I need to see, and The Matrix is on there, but I have not seen that movie yet.
It's a great movie.
Oh, I need to check that out. That's because that's the kind of, I know what it's about, and those are the kind of thoughts that I have. That's the kind of stuff I can think on and explore mentally, or find some literature online, or maybe find a physical book to read on those kind of concepts, because I believe that this is easy to it's not mutually exclusive to be a Christian and also believe that there is something else out there.
Well, again, I have a problem with that word, because if you say you're a Christian, you believe that manners is sinful, and Jesus had to die. Then you're not necessarily a Christian, because that's the premise of the Christian faith. You are, like I say, I was born a Christian. I was born into that, but I kind of broke out of the dogmas, because anything, it says in the Bible, the Word is with God, and the Word is God. Then I don't need man-made words, because I got God's word, which is a silent word, which is just a feeling, which is love, which is the only thing that I need. And everything else is smart-ass men who try, and men in particular, throughout history, who because they need power.
Exactly. But I said that, didn't I?
Yeah, you said that.
Yeah.
And I don't need that. I'm not, well, it's not for me, man. You know?
I guess
this oppression will not stand.
I guess I would claim that I am a original Christian.
Yeah.
Because again, I believe that men came in and corrupted the original message of Christianity for their own political gain, their own financial gain. They put different interpretations in the Bible to where women have to be subjugated. And I just don't believe, I cannot see that was God's intention.
God doesn't intend besides experiencing himself or herself.
And I totally agree.
That's the only thing that God does, is just being.
And I agree with that.
This is God. And I'm just sitting here now holding my hands out and just being. Because, and then on your little finger, there's a little community of what do you call baciller?
Microbes.
Microbes, yeah, on your little fingers. And one part, the bacteria on the left side of your little finger go, we're right about this finger. And then there's a bacteria on the right side of your little finger. No, the fingers, we know how this finger works. And then they're having this little war on your little finger. And God is just going, I hope you guys figure it out, because I'm just surfing through eternity.
But I believe that is exactly what God is about.
So he doesn't care about all that. And if those microbes kill themselves off, all the energy that spawned the microbes just goes back into God.
And God, and all of this has happened only on one finger. There's 9 other fingers.
There's 9 other fingers.
And that's where I'm getting at when I think that it is quite possible, it is a fact that I am a Christian, but I also believe that there is more than that dogmatized, square-framed interpretation of the Bible that we hear people putting out there today. I believe that it is more than that. This goes back to what I was saying about reading the Bible and studying it and applying it to my life.
But listen, Jesus is the man, right? We agree on that. Yeah, he's the man.
Sure.
So I want to have his religion.
And is that Christianity?
No, it's not Christianity.
I believe that the word Christianity is just something that is put on that way of thinking.
Yeah.
And again, I believe there are more similarities than differences between the different faiths.
Of course, because they come from the same want to understand.
Exactly.
And it's just cultural where it appeared, and when it appeared in time and all that. It's just that's the differences.
It says in the Bible, and a lot of people will use this to try to cancel out other religions outside of Christianity. It says in the Bible, "No man cometh to the Father except through me." Okay, but I believe that there's more than one way to Rome. There's more than one road to Rome.
I think that's interpreting what Jesus said.
Exactly.
What Jesus meant was you have the Father being understanding that we are all a part of God experiencing himself. But to understand that, you have to understand what I have understood.
Exactly.
And so through me, unto the way I carry myself, the choices I make, you can try to apply those things from outwards and in. But really, because we are all God's voice is inside of each and every one of us. So that voice can if we just learn to listen for that voice, it's much better for that voice to come from the outside, the inside, and go out.
Yeah.
Because that's the main frame. That's plugging into the main frame of it all,
so I believe then that the tendency of Christians to dismiss other faiths comes from that man-made desire or need for power and control.
Yeah. Same with Islam. Same thing.
Same thing.
And Judaism and everything. It's the same thing. The only Buddhists and Taoists are the only ones who say, I don't know. I don't care. I don't know. And I like that. I like that way of being.
Sure.
So what's the meaning of this? I don't know. Just who are you to say, well, you have to do this and that, and your wife has to do this, and okay.
I can't get down with that.
I can't get down with this. This is too much. And when people say, God told me, that's 100%. Sure that run away when people say that. Yeah. God told me that. Okay, thank you. I'm not listening to you anymore, because God doesn't tell you anything.
No.
God just shows you, and when God shows you stuff, there are never any words to describe it.
No.
Never.
And therein lies the flaw. This may be sacrilegious to some people, but I say therein lies the flaws of the Bible.
Because it's man-made.
It is man-made.
Yeah.
However, I use the teachings in the Bible, the stories, the parables. I use that as a guide towards my enlightenment and the enlightenment of my family and anyone else who chooses to share it with me.
Yep.
And in that enlightenment, it does not include the demonization of other paths.
No.
I can't. It can't. It just
I mean,
it doesn't match up with what I believe in what the Bible is teaching.
True, and listen, in Zen there's a really interesting way of explaining this, and that is that most people, like, words are like a finger pointing to the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So words are like a finger pointing to the moon. Now, most people stare at the finger, but you're supposed to stare at the moon.
Stare at the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what religion does. It becomes the
That's
finger
a good way of putting it.
pointing at where you're actually supposed to be focused, but you're focused on the pointer.
That's a very intelligent way of putting it, and that is the trap that a lot of people fall victim to.
Yeah. And you think that you don't have to experience it yourself because there's some priest or some higher man or person in your hierarchy that tells you, well, this is how it is, son.
Yeah.
Like they told me when I was a kid, when I was like 16, they said, you ask too many questions, Espen. And that was the final note. That was all I needed to hear.
Yeah.
In my church, you ask too many questions, okay.
Wrong answer.
I'm out of here.
You had to go.
I'm out of here.
You had to go.
Yeah. See you later.
How old were you when you
16.
when you accepted the teachings or began to immerse yourself in the teachings of Taoism? How old were you then?
It was around 98, 99. So
Okay.
I guess I was like 33, 34 years old.
Okay. Yeah. Have you ever considered spending some time in a monastery?
Oh yeah.
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 Where are the opportunities for that here in Norway or Europe?
There are opportunities, but
Where would that?
there are. You can. I don't have them at the top of my head, but my teachings come from the Wudan Mountains. So the natural thing for me would be to go to China and go to the Wudan Mountains. But like my guru told me, she said, I can arrange that for you. But are you sure that's where you're supposed to be?
I see.
Maybe you're supposed to be in the world. So I create little monastery periods for myself.
I understand.
Where I just don't see too many people for a couple of months.
I see.
I live in the world. I call my mom. I pick up my son at school. I do those things. But I retract. I go in
Self-reflection.
Yeah, a lot of the time. Spend a lot of time in nature. A lot of times walking like into the forest and just getting lost in the forest.
Yeah,
and staying all the way away from any poisons like alcohol or anything. Because I try not to be like, oh no, I don't drink. I'm a vegan. I don't like labels.
Right.
I just know that. Like Gandalf says when he comes to Bilbo, I've got a new bottle of the old vineyard left. Just tea, thank you. You know.
So you have an awareness. You have an awareness of what you put into your body and the consequences of that, benefits and detriments, and then you choose according.
Yeah. So my friend, we plan. A friend can plan. We're going to have a little party, but I go, okay, I'm not going to be a party pooper. I know that I'll use 2-3 days to recover. But then I say, well,
you go into it with that knowledge.
With that knowledge, and I say to my family that it's going to be. I'm going, you know how I am. I'm going to so they don't hassle me and they don't, torment me, because I do this every once in a while, like a couple of times a year. We do that,
Water?
Yeah. And then I can go with my friends and we can have some brews and we can have some fun and play some golf and do what we do. and I don't have to be that.
So you portion it, according to how you want your day to go.
I try to function in the world, you know?
Exactly. That's a healthy view. That's a healthy way of looking at it.
I think it's healthy. It's not problem free. I mean, sometimes I take this beer too many, and I'm like, oh my God, you know. And I can look at my friends, and they're up the next day just getting about their business.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is, but I spent a week, you know, getting back into the saddle, you know. So
that's time consuming.
It is very time consuming.
Energy consuming.
So when it comes to like parties like that, I choose very consciously and very carefully. And most of the time I say, no, thank you, I can't make it. But when it's the important parties, the ones that I know is the glue in our gang and that are important, that I really should participate in.
For the social aspect.
For the social aspect.
To solidify your bonds.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to solidify my bonds a little more, because I stay away from parties. I'm just not I'm not comfortable.
No, me neither.
In those situations. Even when I perform, whether it's my stand-up or music, when I'm done, I'm looking for an exit relatively quick.
Yeah.
I'm not one who hangs out and
No.
I can't do that.
No, I understand. Very.
And here's something I need to work on, because I do this consistently. I employ a certain amount of trickery to get out of those situations.
Can I have some?
Yeah, sure. Here we go. That's an iPhone, right?
That's an iPhone, yeah. I just need some battery power here, because
you've been talking a long time. I bet you. I think we set a record. This is the longest podcast I've ever had.
Well, you must have very patient listeners if they're going to sit through all this.
Well, I don't. How do I put this?
You don't have any listeners.
No, I actually, since I did an episode 28, this will be episode 50.
So you got some.
And episode 28 went semi-viral. That's what got me on the Norwegian morning news program, because of that one episode. And since then, things have just kind of exploded. So there's some doors that have been opened because of that. But I don't know. I mean, I like to talk with people as I'm talking with you now, and let the conversation go where it goes. And that means the subject matter can be quite dynamic within the same discussion, and then the time issue is just what it is. We talk as long as we talk. And I'm counting on my listeners thinking as I do when it comes to that they will, you know, and I don't mind if they don't have time. I know people don't have time to sit and listen to a 3.5 hour conversation in one sitting. But break it up, listen to it on your way to work for a half hour. Listen to it on your way home for a half hour. Maybe you wait until Saturday when you're cleaning the house and you've got it going in your headset. Yeah. So people get through it.
Yeah. I mean, I get through it. My favorite podcasts are like, Waking Up with Sam Harris, or The Dark Horse with Brett Weinstein or something. And,
I love that one.
Yeah.
Brett Weinstein. Wow.
I'm glad you know about him. Yeah,
absolutely. His brother too.
Yeah, Brett and Eric, and also Daniel Schmachtenberger, if you know about him.
I know the name. I'm not familiar with his podcast.
So these are names that people that listen to this podcast really should Google and because I think that they're some of the best ideas. Also, Charles Eisenstein is a man for people to check out, with a lot of really good suggestions on moving forward.
I think podcasting, when it started, my understanding was that it was a short thing, 15, 20 minutes, maybe a half hour. But I do believe it has metamorphosized into this thing where people will break it up and listen to it in bits. Yeah. And that's kind of what I'm counting on. It seems to be working. People are giving me feedback saying that they're sticking with it, and they listen to it on the way in, on the way home from work, and then again on the weekends. So be it. But my average length is about an hour and a half.
Yep.
So this is probably double that.
It is what it is. It is. But we've talked about mostly music and spirituality, probably. But I mean, for me, it's interconnected, or it's inseparable, actually. And
can you say that you are, in a sense, an evangelist through your music? In other words,
No.
people.
I don't like that word either.
Let me classify it then. Let me take away that word evangelist. Can you say that because you play the music that you play, and then people become interested in your music, and then they become interested in you, the artist who made that music, and then they see aspects of your life that interest them, which might expose...
That's a good way of putting it.
Let's drop that word evangelist. That's a little harsh.
Because it's a two-edged sword that, using yourself as the product, because I don't like exposure. And that's the irony of it, Well,
I was kind of getting into that with me saying I'm not a party person and I'm always looking for an exit after I perform. I want to perform and I put myself out there. Yeah. But as soon as I'm done with that, the shyness, the introvert side of me comes in and I need to get out.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't want it to be about me.
No.
I want it to be about my experience.
Yeah.
And
you're sharing your experience through your art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I see people reacting to my music saying that they become present.
Yes.
That's the biggest compliment I can get, because I want to create space. That is basically the what a shaman does. He creates, or a healer does, is creating space for healing to take place.
And that's what you're doing through your music.
Yeah, because many people think that, he's a shaman, he's got skills, and he's doing this, and he's doing something. No, being a healer is not about doing something. It is about understanding something, and then letting something happen.
Exactly.
That's what it's all about. So you're actually, when I'm in a healing situation, I feel God in every pore of my body. I feel God, but I'm not doing anything. No. I'm just being a channel. I'm just making space for healing to take place.
And you've done the pre-work, so to speak, by doing what it takes in order that you are receptive to that moment. You're prepared for that moment.
Yeah, so you have to crash and burn several times, multiple times, at the to the point where you go, I want to hang myself now.
And there's the pain of the third dimension.
Yeah. So I want to kill myself now because I can't take it anymore. And then you go, but I can't kill myself because I have responsibilities and I have a son and I have a lot of things. I have many friends who didn't make it.
Yeah.
Now I'm that old. I can look back and say, well, I've got 3-4 people that that took their own lives, and I'm not judging anything. People say, that's cowardice and this and that, and I'm not saying, who are you to say anything? If you've never been at that place in your life where you're considering taking it, I think you should shut the fuck up.
Yeah. To say it straightforward. Absolutely.
Yeah. Sorry, pardon my French, but I don't have this.
We speak French here.
Yeah, that's cool, because that's like. Have you seen Doug Stanhope's stand-up on nationalism?
No, I don't think so.
That's fantastic when he talks about, the French. Fuck the French! If it weren't for you, you'd be all speaking German by now. Us? That was you and me, Bobby? We saved the French? Now, I remember we went into that Wendy's drive-in yesterday because we saw this poster, this alluring commercial for this new burger. And I can remember we've been wasted going through that drive-in, and we didn't have enough money, so we just had to leave it all behind and go out there, and we drank some Jägermeister, watched sports bloopers later, but I can't remember crawling through the trenches of Verdun. I've been checking my pants and there's no mud stains on them. You know what I think, Bobby? I don't think we did fuck all about saving the French. And I think you and I should just shut the fuck up.
Well,
that's basically Doug Stanhope's take on nationalism, and it applies to everything. People take credit for a lot of stuff, Why do you take credit? Oh, it was one for us. We did that. That was us. No, it wasn't.
Oh.
You didn't do shit. You just sat there and voted for some people who took a selfish, egoistic solution to make more money, and hope that you don't notice that they're getting richer and you're getting poorer.
Well, money and financial gain is actually at the root of a lot of things that are interpreted as charity. Yeah. In other words, that ego is there and people want to look good, so that's why they do this, that, or the other, not because they have the benefit of others in mind.
No.
It's a sad fact.
It's simple.
It's a sad reality.
It's a sad reality, but we're waking up to it.
I think so.
Yes, we are. That's what's going on right now.
Yeah, that goes back to what I said about the new political change that I think is going to come in November.
Exactly. Yeah. And then we say, well, I ain't doing this no more. Oh, but we need you to keep continuing being this mindless sheep that you've always been. Yeah, but I ain't that no more, you see. I've woken up. So I ain't doing that, you know. I'm not jumping at your command anymore. I'm not doing this. Well, then I won't have any more power. No, exactly. That's the whole point of it.
A new reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, where does the power go? The power goes to everybody. Yeah. Because that's where it's supposed to be.
That's where it was meant to be.
Meant to be. To the community, and to everybody.
That is the true foundation of the United States, that people have come so far. There's a lot of people screaming that they are patriots, and they're not. I think they've lost sight of what the United States was supposed to be. That distribution of power among the people.
Some people they don't even know why we celebrate 4th of July. Exactly. Some people, it's just become this monster, this Frankenstein monster of stuff. And in the bottom of it all is the fear of losing your identity.
Yeah.
And this is one thing I want to talk about before we finish that is really important now. People, oh, you got to drop this. You're using the Confederate flag and you're doing this and you're doing that. Well, at least here in Norway, the Confederate flag has just been a symbol that says, I love the Southern American music and culture, and it's about being a rebel and drinking beer, but it's got nothing else connected to it. Now, in the States, that's a whole different thing. But we have to see what's what here, you know? Okay, well, it's not cool using this flag anymore. Well, why? Well, here's why. Oh, most people will go, well, damn, I understand that. Well, but I have so many good times connected with this symbol that means something else to me. Well, I can understand that, but you have to let that go. That's the way to deal with it, instead of going, what are you doing with that flag?
Let me ask
because
you this,
then you'll just go.
I totally understand that, and I even agree with what you're saying. But let me ask you this then: here in Norway, I see people fly the Confederate flag, and to me, it's bizarre.
Yeah,
but okay, as you say, people associate it with something totally different over here.
Yeah.
And I understand that. Yeah. But how do they have any responsibility to understand why, in particular, a Black American would look at that flag?
Sure.
And have a reaction. Sure,
but you don't get them to understand that responsibility by screaming at them and calling them names they're not.
And there's a highlight on the importance of dialogue and discussion, and there's too little of that happening.
So saying, what? Are you flying that flag? Are you idiots? I saw this Facebook. I commented on this.
Yeah, exactly. That's the wrong way to approach it, because right away you put the person in, you stamp them with that word idiot, and you put them in a position of conflict instead of a position of understanding and discussion.
It's like, that's the wrong way. You're still flying this flag. Hey, buddy.
Yeah.
You got 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Do you want a cigarette?
Yeah.
Let's go for a walk. I'll tell you something.
Yeah.
And you come back from that talk, and it's like, whoa, man, I didn't know all this. Exactly. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to go and pack down that flag this minute, you know?
See, I would
that's the way to do it.
And that's the way I would approach it as well, is have a discussion about it and then stand back and let that individual make their own decision. And if they decide to continue to fly that flag, okay, well, you know, that's their thing.
Then we'll have to think about different strategies.
Exactly.
But going off on that wartime strategy as your first initiative that's
so destructive.
It's very destructive, especially when you put it in the context of us all being pure love and all being God experience.
Well, we see it happening left and right in the United States. You know, someone mentions that they're a Democrat. Oh, you idiot! You libtard! And right away, the labeling and the conflict and the
duality.
Yeah, you know, and
you get the polar,
and it's so destructive.
So the word that I use to kind of summarize the way I look at the word is the word non-duality. Yeah. So nothing is separate from anything else. Yeah. The separateness of things is just an illusion. The separateness of humans, that we're not connected physically, doesn't mean we're not connected.
Yeah.
So just because we can't see what connects us doesn't mean it's not real. Just like air.
Yeah.
We can't see air.
But we feel it. We're definitely influenced by it. We definitely use it. It's there.
Yeah. And so it's with the energy that connects us, with the field of love. The people, what are you talking about? Can people say? And I can say, well, how many times have you wandered into a room and you felt the vibe, either good or bad? Oh, a strange vibe in this room. This is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
This is the energy that we disperse without thinking about it. It comes from what we're thinking and the way we carry ourselves.
Right.
So if we sit with a lot of toxic thoughts, a lot of self-destructive thoughts, or thoughts that are destructive towards other people, this energy will resonate out of our being, and it will put its mark on the space around you.
Yeah.
So be aware of that, and that is a testament to how you should carry yourself, how you should get up every morning, and how you should get to bed every morning. And doing that in alignment with love and compassion and beauty.
Yeah.
Because if you do that, you'll stay in the light. And if you stay in the light, you don't have any problems with what Christianity calls sin, because
it's not an issue.
Because it's not an issue, because you're in the light. So you will never make decisions that will put you in a compromised situation.
Exactly.
You will say, oh, no, I don't know, but I want to go down here.
That's such a well thought out way of putting this. Mm-hmm. You ever consider writing a book?
Oh, yeah. Actually, when I look into the future, I don't see myself as often on stage playing guitar as I maybe do talking.
I see.
And I'd love to write a book, and I'm starting to get the contours of what it might be.
I was talking to Kim Fairchild a couple weeks ago.
Great singer.
Yeah, I love her to death. I was fortunate enough to be able to sit in on a session that she did, and just to watch her in the vocal booth doing her thing. Yeah. Much less listening to it, but just watching her confidence and her control is just it's amazing. Shout out to Kim Fairchild.
Yeah, hi Kim.
But she has been working on a book. I can't wait for this book to come out. It's going to come out very shortly.
Cool.
And she's so fearless.
Yeah.
I don't want to expose what her book is going to be about, but it is a testimony in fearlessness.
Sounds awesome.
Even the way she pitched it for the publishing company was fearless. I love that woman. She is. You want to talk about living in the light? She is such a spreader of joy. She falls under this umbrella of thoughts and concepts that you're discussing right now. She's very much like you, without calling herself a Taoist or anything, but she thinks very much in the same way that you do.
That's so great to hear, and just to be
it's not uncommon.
Just to be clear about that, I don't identify my identity does not come from Taoism.
No,
my identity comes from being a part of God, experiencing Himself. But on the road to this understanding, Taoism was instrumental,
right,
in making me see a lot of things I hadn't seen before.
It's part of you. It's not you. It has shaped you. It's shaped
part of my human. It's part of the human part of me.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have human being. We're a human being. So we're doing the human thing all the time, which is learning and living and experiencing. But we forget about the being. And the being part is the God part, is just the awareness of presence. And when you realize that I am actually everything. There's no separation between me and the trees I see and the nature I see. Well, how can you say that? Well, you have to go into presence.
Yeah.
If you're in alignment with the present moment, that is what comes up. That is the shift that you get into. It's not an intellectual thing.
No.
It's not something. It's just that, I'm that tree now. So if you don't feel that, you're not in the present moment. You're intellectualizing something.
I see. Yeah.
So it's impossible. Like, again, back to the Bible, the Word is not only with God, the Word is God. So all these words are the finger pointing at the moon. You have to find the moon with your own eyes.
Yeah. Stop looking at the finger.
Stop looking at the finger.
What a conversation, man! I applaud you in.
Oh, thank you.
In your spread, you are a spreader of joy. Mm-hmm. I knew you would be. I had a gut feeling, instinct. I don't know what you call that. Being in the light. I don't know what it is, but I knew our conversation was going to be like this. There's just some things that you feel it and it manifests itself.
Yeah. Well, my pleasure, John. It's been awesome. So really.
You have another appointment to go to. Now it's my time to take a bathroom break. So we have to cut this. We have to cut this conversation short. Yeah. But I just want to thank you for this conversation. I say this to my guests, not all of them, but most of them. There's people I know. There's people I associate with, and then there's people that I can call brother or sister. I'd like to call you brother.
You're my brother too, man.
I love you, man.
I love you too, dude.
Man. Thanks a lot for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Espen Jørgensen. Bye, everybody. I'm coming home. I'm coming home. Yes, I am. Yes, I'm coming home. I'm coming home. Yes, I am, my Lord. Oh, my Lord. Lord, I'm coming home.